The Texans trade out of the first round last night. 25th overall pick they went into the night with. They leave the night with the 34th overall pick, which will be the second pick tonight. In the process, they pick up another third-round pick, 99th overall. They'll use that tonight possibly. And then a third-round pick in 2026. So the net of all of it is they've got 5 picks tonight. They didn't pick anybody last night, but they've got 2 second-round picks, 3 third-round picks tonight. And they've got extra seconds, thirds, and fourths in next year's draft, which we'll talk about the draft inventory and what it means. But the specific players that were flying off the board last night, that at times you were probably looking at the TV screen going, oh, man, he's available. Boy, I hope I see the Texans at the bottom of the screen here with a trade up to get this guy. That was me. I was like that for sure. We're going to go through each of the individual guys that maybe we're feeling some FOMO over today, that they're not Houston Texans. A lot of texts weighing in on this as well. Before we get to both of those things, here was Nick Caserio talking about the Texans' strategy last night.
Yeah, not like, I would say middle teens, middle to kind of upper teens. Like, started to look a little bit like, all right, what are we looking at? What are our options? All right, where are some of these teams? And trying to kind of get an idea. As, again, not wait till 25. I'd say some teams had a pretty good idea, and that 18, they were potentially looking to move out. So then it's, all right, who are you moving out for? What are you doing? What do you have to give up? So those are all the things. Honestly, I mean, I know we didn't pick, but like we probably were more active and had as many discussions as any draft has been a part of. So that's the thing about, and we've talked about this, everything's fluid. You just got to be flexible. You got to be adaptable. You got to be ready to move. You got to take the information. You have a pretty good sense or feel for what you think's going on in the rest of the league. I mean, honestly, a lot of the guys that were picked and where they were picked didn't surprise us. They may have surprised some other people because they weren't thought of to go that high. But honestly, I mean, D'Amico and I talked before the draft, and we said, when I talked to even some agents, this guy's going to go way higher than people think he's going to go. And they agreed, and, you know, we were right. Doesn't mean we're right on everything. It just means we had a sense and a feel for maybe how we thought this was going to go.
Who is the player he's referring to there?
Tyler Booker.
100%.
Tyler Booker, 100%. 100%. Tyler Booker. Because, and if Nick had taken Tyler Booker at 25, the ironic thing is a huge chunk of people amongst Texans fans would have crushed Nick for reaching for Tyler Booker.
Yeah.
Or, you know, for caring more about swarm traits than anything else. Know this, as much as you hate the Cowboys are really, really good at drafting. That's why they're still a credible football team.
Yeah.
Is because they're really, really good at drafting.
That's right.
And they take Tyler Booker 12th overall. I think that what Nick alluded to there, where around the high teens is when they started maybe aggressively thinking about trading up. Gray Zabel goes at 18.
Yep.
And you look at the players at positions of need or that had been linked to the Texans that were still out. Emeka Ibuka, Matthew Golden, Donovan Jackson. You got 4 guys there in the next 6 or 7 picks or so that the math doesn't quite add up. So you want to just get up a few spots so that one of those guys, if those are the guys he had identified, and maybe they like Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle, as well. Mm-hmm. So, but he ended up being gone. It makes sense that I bet the Gray Zabal. There's a good chance that Gray Zabal selection by the Seahawks is what triggered really wanting to move up. A little bit. That was the run on guys that they liked was starting to start.
And the price was the price was not what Nick thought. You know, was in line with moving up to get those guys. We'll talk about the specific players that the Texans missed out on, possibly. Definitely missed out on. They're not Houston Texans today. You know what? How the Texans graded them, we have no idea. But we know how we graded them and how much we wanted these guys. I do want to read a few texts because these are good lead-ins here. I don't think the Texans is a text message. Jim Adler, the Texas Hammer text line. Don't think the Texans got fleeced, but I also don't like the strategy of bringing in middle-of-the-road players for competition. That doesn't improve the talent level markedly. The Patriot way strikes again.
Right. I get it. I understand what you're saying, but this is the problem, and this is where I actually admire Nick. It's that Nick, as our most good GMs, are way less arrogant about their ability to say who is and is not a good player than a lot of people following the draft. Yeah. And, like, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't realize Kamari Lassiter was just an average upgrade. I'm sorry, I don't realize that Kalen Bullock doesn't have a whole lot of promise. Right. I didn't realize that those guys aren't young talent on your team.
Yeah.
It really is a matter of and you don't find out really for 2 or 3 or 4 years on a lot of guys. It's just to believe that somehow the 25th pick, that's top-tier talent.
Yeah.
But the 34th pick is like, oh, what a bum.
Nailed it.
Well, that's just depth and competition.
Yep.
Like, it's honestly, Sean, the whole thought of, like, the people beforehand telling me Josh Simmons won't be available at 25. Oh, you get Tyler Booker in the second round. This is the kind of arrogance that leads nations to lose wars. And this is what leads to financial collapses. It's this unfounded arrogance that you know exactly how these guys are going to play out.
Right. Yeah. It's not like
Get over yourself, humanity.
It's not like they traded out of 5 to go down to 34. It's the 25th and the 34th guy. Like, Tyler Booker himself was going anywhere from 12 to 45 in mock drafts. Like, nobody knows. Yeah.
Don't worry. We'll roll right into Ukraine. It'd be no big deal. Probably be over in 3 days.
Yeah. Here's a text message. It's, I think, a good lead into what you and I are about to talk about here. Good morning, guys. Seth, I had 3 punches in the gut in this draft.
Okay.
Booker going to the Cowboys.
Ugh.
The Bucks taking Ibuka when they already had 2 good wide receivers on their team.
Godwin with a horrific injury, though. So,
I think that's it. You're right. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. That is a tell as to maybe where Godwin is physically right now. And then the third one was Green Bay taking Golden so close to our pick. What was of all the guys, Tyler Booker,
Tyler Booker by far.
Tyler Booker, Donovan Jackson, Matthew Golden, Kelvin Banks, Ibuka, all of them. Tyler Booker is the biggest one for you.
In terms of Tyler Booker being a guy that just fits exactly what the Texans are hoping to do on the offensive line is change the culture, not just upgrade the talent. People gush and gush and gush. Daniel Jeremiah said that Tyler Booker has gotten more gushing over his intangibles than anybody other than Will Anderson, really. Like, so people love him. He plays with physicality. And you go back to scouting reports before the Combine, and the people that were watching Tyler Booker did not cite his athleticism as an issue. They didn't say that his athleticism was a plus. But then he tests poorly at the Combine, and all of a sudden, all these guys that thought Tyler Booker was going to go midway through the first round downgraded him to a high second-round pick. Yeah, Tyler Booker hurts because and the Cowboys are really good at drafting. They are very good at drafting. They have a harder time retaining and re-signing and all that, and avoiding paternity suits. But that was a kick in the gut. Yeah. I think the Texans were really hoping to get Tyler Booker, or at least it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, and so for you, that was the one where you're like, oh.
And then he went that high. He went 12th overall.
He went 12th. Now, the Texans have moved up from 25 to 12 before to get Deshaun Watson. It cost them a first-round pick. Would you have given up? I wouldn't have given up a first-round pick to go get Tyler Booker, but would you have? What would you have given up in the moment if you could move up and get Tyler Booker?
I don't know. Dude, I'm awful with it.
Okay, gotcha. Tyler Booker was a big one for me. The biggest one for me was Matthew Golden. You guys know I wanted Matthew Golden. That was the guy that was the guy that I wanted. He slips the 2 junctures in the draft where I'm like, okay, the parts of the draft where I was most concerned about Matthew Golden getting taken, Seth, were at Dallas at 12. So them taking Booker there, for me, there's a consolation prize. Like, all right, they didn't take Matthew Golden, and they need a wide receiver, the Cowboys do. They need weapons. Arizona I believe Arizona's at 16, 17, somewhere in there. 16, because the Bengals picked 17. Arizona was one that he was getting mocked to quite a bit. And then that little Denver Chargers early 20s area, right? I thought once he got past the Chargers at 22, I was really optimistic that Matthew Golden was going to be there at 25 for the Texans. And when the Packers went and took him, and that was the biggest when Matt Murphy, or Michael Murphy, whatever his first name is, the president of the Packers, Mr. Murphy, when he said with the 23rd pick, the Packers do something we haven't done since 2002 or whatever it is, I'm like, oh, they're taking a wide receiver, and it's Matthew Golden. Just say his name. Stop. Just say his name and get it over with for me. Kick me now. All right.
I was like, I'm standing on the hangman's platform. Like, all right, I don't need a flowery speech. Yeah. All right, just put the hood over my head and let me drop.
So mine's Golden, yours is Booker. What about these other guys? What was your FOMO
so
level on these other guys?
Matthew Golden was a kick in the nargs because I had allowed myself to dream.
Yeah.
He was sitting there, he was sliding. You're looking at, okay, who might draft a wide receiver? I don't know. The Packers have a history. Hey, look. The Vikings are doing just fine with their Justin Jeffersons and whatnot. That was a kick just because of I had allowed myself to dream. That was like holding a lottery ticket for $1 billion prize, and you start thinking about all the
everything you're gonna buy.
Yeah, all the things you're gonna do for your mom and everything. Yeah. I'd say honestly, this is a weird one, but in reverse, or is retroactively, Josh Connerly and Josh Simmons. Oh, no, wait. First, Donovan Jackson, obviously.
Right
Donovan
before.
Jackson.
Yeah,
Donovan Jackson was there. You're sitting right there. Like, okay, all the guys that you'd really identified, there's still one remaining. It's come down to this. You're at the finish, and boom, there he goes.
What would we be saying this morning if Donovan Jackson had gotten to the Texans and they took him at 25?
I would say I'd be excited about it. I think a lot of people, again, kind of like with Tyler Booker, people had him as a potential early second rounder. So there would be people criticizing Nick for it. I had identified him as a guy that I felt good about. Mm-hmm. And like most of the guys at 25, I felt good about, but there are guys who are also going 25 for a reason. So I would have felt really good about it because I think it was just a step in the right direction. I wouldn't like project the game changer or what have you, but it was a guy that many people had identified and that Daniel Jeremiah had linked to the Texans with a lot of confidence. I would have felt like, all right, boy, they played it down to the wire, but the strategy worked out. They got one of the guys they had identified.
Yeah, Jackson, with the Jackson, when Donovan Jackson got picked, that's when I said, there's a good chance they trade here. We've been talking about it on this show for the last 2 weeks, which is that the Texans, especially as Shedeur Sanders' stock began to drop over the last couple weeks, and Jackson Dart's stock was going up from the second round into the back end of the first round. We've been saying it on this show, which is 25 is a primo spot if quarterbacks are slipping to the back end of the first round. That's sort of the beginning of the chunk of the draft where teams are going to start to think about moving up into to get that extra year of team control with the fifth-year option that you get on first-round picks. And bingo, that's exactly how it played out. All the guys that the Texans seemingly probably were very high on were off the board. There's still a couple guys. Nick even said himself, there's at least one guy they thought about taking at 25 instead of doing that trade that's sitting there right now on the board still. But the once all these guys that we're talking about flew off the board, the trading back thing to me it was obviously very viable. My gut reaction to what they got, the 2/3 at first was, I thought they'd get a little more than that. I got to see how the math works out on the Jimmy Johnson chart, and it turns out the math works out fine on it.
The math works out fine. It just in the immediate moment too, where as I've told you, I let the nerds do the work for stuff because I always plug in some number. Everybody, I messed up 4 minus 2.
Earlier today.
This show, 34 minus 32. I messed that math up. So as far as the trade value. A lot of people in the moment thought, oh, my gosh, look at what the Rams got. How the hell did the Texans get bilked by this? No, the Giants are being widely panned for spending as much as they did to move up.
Yeah.
I give them a pass because it was a quarterback. Yeah. But the Texans get back the equivalent of a late third-round pick with that trade. So the trade value worked out. It's just that the Rams really put one over. They got the equivalent of an extra high third-round pick,
from the Falcons. For those who don't know what Seth's talking about, the very next pick, the Rams traded out as well, and in the process from the Falcons, amongst all the chum of draft picks that got traded in that, there was a first-rounder in there. The optics of getting a first-rounder is what's helping the Rams there, too.
But the Texans get the equivalent of a high third-round pick, so it's like the trade value made sense. Yeah. That part of it made sense.
Yeah, what about the other – so you and I are in agreement. The Tyler Booker pick at 12, that hurt in the moment. The Matthew Golden pick at 23, that hurt greatly in the moment, especially for me. Donovan Jackson at 24, that hurt. That to me was the trigger, though, where I go, okay, well, I think they're moving here. Yeah. What else, either before or after the Texans?
So Calvin Banks goes off the board, and the fact that he was the third offensive tackle taken, there was a part of me after the first two guys go, after Mbu and Will Campbell and
Armand Membu. Yeah.
I was like, okay, you know what? If Kelvin Banks maybe slides a little bit down towards 15 or 16, maybe we're in action here. Yeah. But I never really felt like the Texans had a chance for Kelvin Banks unless he slid further than people expected.
Yep.
That one, Kelvin Banks worked out where people expected him to work out. Mm-hmm. Tip of the cap to the draft heads. So that was more like, I really would have liked to have him. The one that hurt retroactively was after the pick is made, and I'm sitting there and I'm thirsting for either a wide receiver or an offensive lineman. I thought, man, if no offensive linemen get taken between the 25th pick and the end of the first round, I'll feel even better about the Texans' chance to really revamp the offensive line room. So when Josh Connerly and Josh Simmons both went, there was a little bit of a letdown.
Yeah. Simmons less so for me. That injury is the combination of the injury and the maturity issues. It's that Simmons went to Kansas City that bugged me more than losing out on Simmons, because that is a place where I feel like he's going to go, and he's probably going to be pretty good. He'll have time to kind of, it would be different certainly than if Josh Simmons went to one of the teams picking near the top of the second round today. He'd be asked to be a starter right away probably.
I think from a pettiness perspective, some of the things that were a kick in the gut were also I was a little bit happy about. Because I'm sure I'm going to be getting all of the apologies from the people who adamantly insisted that Josh Simmons would be gone well before pick 25, that you could have gotten Emeka Egbuka in the second round, or you could have gotten Tyler Booker in the second round. Yeah. I'm sure they're just flowing into my inbox and my DMs right now. You arrogant Fs. What you don't know.
Yeah. No, you don't know. You don't know. So the people weighing in. Okay, so let's get to some of the opinions here on the text page on what the Texans did last night. What did you say? I think you echoed what my buddy John.
You said 75%.
Yeah, John. Yeah. So John, my buddy John, who's in the YouTube chat every day, said that it's about 75-25 people looking to jump off a bridge. At 75, and it's he said Abigail's the one leading the way in the chat.
Abigail's very measured. Okay. I would say Abigail's a realist.
Okay.
And so I'm gonna have to go in and look. I gotta stay off chats when I'm this sleep deprived and moments like this, because I get too distracted.
Yep.
But I'll have to check and see if Abigail is freaking out. Honestly, that's a little bit of a canary in the coal mine. I gotta check my blind spots.
Okay. Here's some of the text. Jim Adler, the Texas Hammer text line. Texans are overthinking it. I disagree with that. I mean, I think there's a method to every.
I don't know. No, this is where I honestly. One thing Nick said last night is I think the appropriate way for GMs to look at it. They don't look at rounds. They look at actual position on the draft board.
Yeah.
And if you think if you're that confident, there's a gigantic chasm between 25 and 34, that at 25 you've got a culture changer, and that at 34 that's just a bum like Kamari Lassiter, I guess.
Right.
It's just at 25 in any given year.
Yeah.
This year the Texans feel like there's just not as much difference between 25 and 34 as perhaps in other years.
You know who went 34 last year, Seth? Lat McConkey. He went 34 last year.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's look, you run into the hazards of sounding like Jack Easterby here and acting like actually it's better to pick 34 because you don't have to pay him as much. I'm not going that far with it. But especially with wide receivers, the number of really good second and third round wide receivers, that holds true. That's been a trend for a while now.
Someone says, in Nick we trust. That's the very next text after he's overthinking it. To your point about the money, someone's asking, could trading out of the first round also been about cap considerations in the future? Obviously, you're not going to pay whoever you're taking today as much as you would be paying somebody you take at 25. I unequivocally, this is my own. I say no. I don't think it's any consideration.
So. No, I don't want to say it's pocket change, but it's negligible.
Yeah, no, it's a beneficial byproduct of it. Yeah, they're going to pay less for these guys they take today, but I would be willing to almost guarantee.
But they actually get extra picks though too, so they get
So maybe they got more guys to pay. So I think it's zero consideration here. Good morning, fellas. What are y'all's thoughts? Who do you think we take at 34? We have not talked much about that other than your mention of the fun possible Travion Henderson scenario.
Yeah, the one, I think the part where it gets interesting is at offensive tackle, where whose name I always screw up.
Looking at it right now. It's Ursary. Yeah.
Yeah, Ursary out of Minnesota. So Ursary's not a great athlete. He doesn't look like a first-round offensive tackle, but he's 6'6", 330 pounds. He's a massive human being. He played in a scheme in Minnesota that was very outside zone based, probably better suited for a really athletic offensive lineman. I don't know if they would take him with the 34th pick overall, but when you're looking at offensive tackles, perhaps, he might be a guy that makes a lot of sense if the Texans want to be more of a smash-mouth football team that they might go after. And then, Tate Ratledge out of Georgia at guard, Marcus Embo out of Purdue, Miles Frazier out of LSU.
Yep.
Like, those are guys, if you're looking at offensive linemen, I think those guys are very, very possible.
Yeah, the other tackles, Ursary is the top-rated tackle. If you're looking at other tackles, Ozzie Trapillo from Boston College, who I've heard Bill O'Brien gush about in some of the interviews I've done. Charles Grant, the kid from William & Mary, is on the board. Texans had him in for a visit. Not at 34 probably, but maybe at 58, something like that,
Okay, so now this is the other thing, too, is that, when GMs say they take the best player available, there's always a little bit of tweaking and massaging there in that they organize their board also based on what the role of a player might be. So I think there's a really good chance that if they stay at 34, the guy that's still available, the Texans felt, they said, Sarah said there's a guy out there that they thought was worth taking at 25. Yeah. They passed on him, position of need. And Travion Henderson is he's sitting right there at his draft party, waiting for his parents. He's helping his parents clean up the draft party from last night now, and they're getting ready to go again. And Travion Henderson is there. I'm not going to be ultra surprised if they take Travion Henderson, just because they might really like his talent, but they thought, all right, at 25, we've already got a running back. We want to get somebody that it's very possible.
Well, and they may still see wide receiver and O-line as something where, hey, we got 58. 79, 89, and 99. So we've got either 4 picks we can use to get guys there, or we can bundle a couple of those third-round picks to move up into the second round to go target a guy like that.
Yeah. And Travion Henderson, look, it's like college stats are whatever, but 7.1 yards per carry on a very, very potent offense, but runs angry. Yeah. Runs angry. Well, just like sometimes it looks like he prefers to deliver the blow than elude it, and yet he keeps his speed up through contact. So, boy, that would be split, man. There would be some people who would be super excited about Travion Henderson. There's others going to despise that pick if that's who they take.
I would be excited. I do think that them having 5 picks today, 5 picks today, second and third round, does increase the chances of them coming away with a running back today.
And, the other part of Travion Henderson that I know people don't like talking about at all, but where he could potentially be better than Joe Mixon is in pass protection. Yeah. Like, he squares up, he delivers a blow, that great pass protector. Travion Henderson has the potential to be.
Bucks taking Ibuka seemed to throw things off kilter in the draft last night. It was a bit of a surprise. I hadn't seen Ibuka going anywhere above 20 in the draft.
Well, I think Ibuka's another guy that when Nick said, man, some of these mock drafts that just, like you're looking at it and nobody's thinking that these guys are going to go high. Yeah. But Nick's getting intel from agents and whatnot that, no, they're definitely going to go high. Mm-hmm. I think Emeka Ibuka and Tyler Booker are probably 2 of the guys he was thinking about. I'm guessing it wasn't a huge surprise to Nick that Ibuka went to the Bucks, especially given Godwin's injury situation.
Right. Well, Nick's pretty plugged. I mean, Nick talks to a lot of people. The
agents give a lot of that. The agents you can trust, at least, that aren't just trying to blow smoke.
Any thoughts on Luther Burden? This is a text message. Jim Adler, the Texas Hammer text line. Any thoughts on Luther Burden still being on the board?
I think that Luther Burden being on the board isn't a huge surprise. And I think this is there's a little bit of a projection just because of the offense that he played in, and that's where people just kind of wonder about him. I think that's very possible, though. I think Luther Burden maybe Luther Burden's the guy they were talking about.
Maybe
that would be the one that people would be most happy and excited about. I think Luther Burden has a kind of an electric athleticism to him that Ibuka, and I think more so than there's a suddenness to Burden that Matthew Golden doesn't necessarily have. He's a smaller guy, but we've seen that the Texans aren't afraid of drafting smaller guys at wide receiver. That might be the leader in the clubhouse, right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Now he is the one who has the girlfriend who's his manager and the mom that kind of hangs around a lot, and he's not a Sunday guy. He's a Sunday guy, but not a Monday through Saturday guy.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that part of it.
Yeah.
I don't worry about. Remember, people had questions about Derek Stingley and whether he had whether his father was too much of a like a guy too heavily involved.
Right.
Which that can go both directions. You can either be, hey, sometimes Earl Woods did pretty well by his son.
For sure.
Or it could be like Marinovich's father.
I guess the thing I would point out there, it would be that pick was made before D'Amico was in the building. How does D'Amico view that pick was made in the Lovie Smith year? How influential is D'Amico in things like the parents being overbearing and the guy not practicing hard and stuff like that?
Well, the girlfriend part of it is the one that freaks me out. Look, lots of moms are super involved. Lamar Jackson, all right? Lamar Jackson's mom turns out to be one of the best agents in the NFL.
Yeah, eventually,
So I don't worry about the parents as much. Girlfriend freaks me out.
Yeah.
That's they're too young. They're too young. Unless he's dating a 47-year-old CFO. If I find out that he's dating a 47-year-old CFO,
you're cool with that?
Then I'm cool with it.
Okay.
Yeah, but if his girlfriend is the same age as him and she's like heavily involved in the process, I'm a little bit
big
nervous.
red flag. I got you.
Yeah.
There were no that I saw. You and I think both watched the same feed. We were both watching ESPN. I didn't watch the NFL Network, but I didn't see any. Girlfriend draft night Hall of Fame worthy interplay like we did with Will Levis's girlfriend last year.
Yeah.
CeeDee Lamb's own.
They weren't giving a lot of drama at all, positive or negative. They really just weren't showing the family at all.
No.
And I'll tell you another annoying thing on the ESPN broadcast. They were tiptoeing around any and all kinds of character concerns, except for when they were lambasting anybody who would question the greatness of Shedeur
Sanders. Yeah.
But other than that, then they were kind of just really. Like when Walter Nolan was drafted, they would say, like, well, hey, he's got good veterans on the team that can help him learn how to play like a pro.
Yeah.
They would allude to it that there might be some maturity concerns with Walter Nolan, but they wouldn't flat out come out and say it.
I didn't see this year, too, where they were doing that thing. Maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention. Like, once a guy got picked, then I was back on my computer until I started hearing, the chimes and whatever. But ESPN used to they were getting clowned yesterday. People were bringing up old graphics of players that had gotten drafted in the past, Seth, where they'd show the player's face after he got drafted. Like the player's face is on the left side of the screen. Then they'd have like 3 bullet-pointed facts about the player, like, led FBS in touchdown passes, 5-star recruit out of high school. And then for a lot of guys, the third one would be some super morbid thing, like mom died of the Mutaba virus back in 2012. Like,
and it's just there on a bullet.
They're just bulleted next to touchdown passes there. Like,
they got so much guff for the year that they went full into the sob story side of things.
Yeah.
That now they're just
generic.
Lost 27 members of his family in a church bus accident.
Yeah, but now
but also likes cats.
Right. Is right-handed. Yeah.
Jaden Higgins would be a guy that I'd be curious about because I think he's been going late second round, but the comp on him is a Nico Collins.
The
Nico Collins being a comp for Jaden Higgins, the wide receiver out of Iowa State, that would be one that I think people would be lambasting because it's above his projected value, yet at the same time, man, Nick in identifying Nico Collins as a guy outside the first round that has those physical traits. Jaden Higgins looks a lot like that.
Optimists would do what you just said about the Nico comp, and you're right. Pessimists would be like, that guy's going 57 in every mock, and we took him at 34. Text message to Jim Adler, the Texas Hammer text line. This is a good one. I think what hurts the fan base in this draft is the C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson draft set an expectation of fireworks, and this first round was a whimper. And I thought about that last night. Like, man, they are never going to replicate. Hopefully they don't have to replicate it. Hopefully they're not picking second and third in the draft anytime soon. We'd not mentioned the draft party yet last night.
Yeah, what happened, Sean?
I texted with a few of my friends who were out there, and they said people were not happy. Now, let's add in the fact that it was pouring rain last night at various times. So
it's pouring rain, and because it's the 25th pick, people are sticking around.
They're sticking around. Yeah. And so it's like
they're at work this morning.
Right. So you're waiting around for something that feels promised to you, even though it's not. We pointed out several times they could trade out of that pick. Yeah. I'm about it. Standing outside for the better part of 4 hours. The doors opened at 6:30, and the 25th pick rolls around at 10 o'clock.
Well, plus, Sean, you know what? I don't look at the Texans fan base as being spoiled because of the fireworks. 4 times in the last 6 years, they haven't had a first-round pick.
That's correct, yeah.
I mean, the F them picks scenario of the Rams was, at the very least, you got an immediate payoff on this. But we've been going since 2020 with not even having a first-round pick in 2/3 of the draft.
That's right.
It gets a little tiring. So just go ahead and win a Super Bowl this year, okay?
Yeah, can we
so
do
we can
that?
make fun T-shirts.
So we can
I don't feel like the Texans have earned a bleep them picks T-shirt yet.
Yeah. Boy, the texts are rolling in, man. This is my question to the texters. Is what if you're somebody who's upset with what the Texans did last night, trading out of the first round? What can they do tonight that would get you back on board with this draft? You're out on it so far because you wanted them to do something in the first round. What can they do tonight that would make you feel like, okay, maybe I was a little, maybe I jumped the gun a little bit. Maybe I should have waited till the end of day 2. I'm curious what that would be for people.
I think that for a lot of people, it's going to be Luther Burden because I think there were some people, Corey Barrett there and a few other people that are very active who like Luther Burden more than Matthew Golden. Mm-hmm. We obviously also have that hometown appeal of any Longhorns that have watched Matthew Golden play that people really liked Matthew Golden.
His walkout song was a Bun B Pimp C song also.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, I'll tell you what, I forgot. Yeah, it's actually, the ratio is even worse. 5 times out of the last 7 drafts, the Texans have not had a first-round pick.
Yeah, 2018, they didn't have one either. Yeah. That's pretty wild, dude.
That's nuts. That's got to be approaching some kind of a record.
It would be 5 out of the last 8 because they drafted Titus in the first round in 2019. They had a first-rounder in 2019, 2022, and 2023. Other than that, their last first-round pick before that was Deshaun Watson in 2017. So, yeah.
Yeah, 5 out of the last 8.
5 out of the last 8, yeah. Okay, there were no girlfriend or wife things going on, but yes, somebody points out on the text page, a baby did puke last night when I don't know if that was Kelvin Banks III that was sitting next to him. There was a baby sitting on a lap of some woman sitting next to Kelvin Banks. It was a baby. I don't know whose baby it was. But there was a baby sitting next to Kelvin Banks when he found out he got drafted by New Orleans, who within 2 seconds, visibly spit up.
Shit, tell us how you feel, kid.
Exactly, man.
I'll tell you what.
Hot take.
Okay, poor behavior by that infant, unacceptable. Where are the parents?
Right there.
No, the biggest where are the parents moment, I felt bad for this dude. During the national anthem, I think I was watching on the NFL broadcast at that time, it's in the middle of the national anthem. The camera goes up to one of the stanchions, and there's 3 kids clowning around. And the father is standing behind them and, desperately trying to tell him to get it together, but also doesn't want to go viral for screaming at his kids during the national anthem.
Yeah.
I felt bad for that. At the peak of oh boy, wait until I get you home, but I can't do this in public. I felt bad for that dude.
Yep.
Especially because then 2 of the kids might have been friends of his son or something.
Yeah. So then you're the overbid. Then you're the dad who's the curmudgeon. Hey.
And you're on camera. You're on camera. And you're like, all right, what do I do here? What do I do here?
Yeah, that sucks. This is a good one. Drafting 3 times, and this is an answer to the question I just posed, which is if you're somebody who's disappointed the Texans didn't pick last night, what can they do today that would get you back on board? Drafting 3 times in the second round would make me a little happy, somebody said. So maybe using 2 of those thirds to move up into the higher part of the second round to get a guy.
Look, and the payoff on it is we know this. The first round has name brand appeal. The second round is people are skeptical as hell of Kamari Lassiter until Kamari Lassiter shows up.
People were mad that the Texans didn't take Kool-Aid McKinstry, the pick before Kamari Lassiter, and I think 90% of it was they like the name Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
It gets a little silly here. These guys are the guys that are still sitting here right now are by and large very similar to the guys that the Texans passed on at 25 who ended up getting picked throughout the rest of the round, just in terms of the caliber of player,